What is going on, everybody? My name is Charles, and I am the host of this podcast. Well, I'm really the only host of this podcast, but listen, I wanted to touch on what my goal is and what my intended purpose and message is for this podcast because I know there's a ton of podcasts out there. I mean, everybody's making one of them, you know, but that you can find and listen to, but you decided to click on this one. First of all, I want to say thank you for giving mine a chance. I am a very open-minded person and I'm always open to feedback. Not to mention, I don't have much experience doing these things, so any advice is great advice, guys. Second, what is my goal and purpose for this podcast? Let's break it down into a few parts. I'll try to keep it short, but it's a podcast, so if I start rambling on, just leave me on the background and go do what you have to do while listening. You don't have to pay attention, just listen. Sometimes it's good to just listen, right? What is my goal with this podcast? Well, I have multiple goals for this podcast, and one of them is to just talk to you about why it's okay for you to just be you, right? And I mean that. A lot of you might think, well, duh, it is okay for me to be me. Well, we all look up to people, and some of these people we have never met, and we try to emulate what they do, right? Especially right now with content creation, as is at a point where you have to act crazy or weird to get anyone to acknowledge you, and you hope that you will blow up and become famous overnight. A lot of people try to act like famous streamers. A lot of people try to act like celebrities, and that is my point. It's okay for you to just be you, right? We all have different personalities, and we all have different circumstances and experiences that make us just as good as the next man. You know what I mean? And you need to know that. You need to understand that you need to be who you are. You need to be who you were meant to be. Not someone else, not a famous person, not a few content creator, just you. That's who you are. Just be you. My next goal for this podcast is to offer guidance. And when I say guidance, I mean in terms of everyday things that affect us in a way that we don't know how to communicate it, or a way to solve these issues. A lot of the times we're told to be tough and strong and to be emotionally open, which sounds crazy because we're taught as men to be emotionally dead. So now as men, as the strongest being on earth and as the leaders we are, we have had enough. We will be what we want to be, right? If we want to be tough and strong, we will be tough and strong. If we want to be emotionally open, we will be emotionally open, because at the end of the day, we're human beings, right? And we will go through things that will crush us. We will go through things that will shatter our hearts. We will go through things that will completely change who we are. But one thing we must remain. One thing we must remember. One thing we must always keep in the back of our mind. And that thing is, we are men, and we are leaders, and we are the first and last lines of safety for our loved ones, our women, our children, and the elderly. As men, we put on many hats. And these hats, I'll go through them throughout the episodes of this podcast. But one of these hats is to make sure our families and loved ones can depend on us and come to us, right? We make sure they eat. We make sure there's a roof over their head, and we must keep them safe. That is what a man must do. That is what a man is. I hope to be the type of person that can create a community where we can agree to disagree on things like these, because we are all different people and we have different circumstances and experiences. My goal is to create a community of like-minded people who will see my vision and see that you don't need to be obnoxious. You don't need to be aggressive unless it's absolutely necessary, right? Sometimes things must be done. A man knows what his goals are, and a man knows where his life should take him. As a man, you cannot afford to be sleeping 9 to 10 hours a day unless you're sick. And even if you're sick, you must find a way to get better as soon as possible because a lot of people are depending on you. As a man, you cannot, and I mean you cannot be nothing, and you cannot afford to not be disciplined, right? You have to be disciplined. There's too many vices and bullshit out there that will create distractions for you. As a man, you must keep growing and keep an open mind. It's okay if you don't have all the answers right now, but what is not acceptable is you giving up, right? That is the core idea of this podcast. That is my goal and what I hope to achieve, right? The community I aim to create and where I will lead this podcast is what I just mentioned to you. It hurts to be less than who you can be. It hurts to not achieve the achievable. And it fucking hurts to have regrets. And before I end this intro, I want to leave you with this. Plato, some people might pronounce this as Plato, but I think it's Plato, once said, "For a man to conquer himself is the first and noblest of all victories." If you're ready to conquer yourself, follow this podcast and come on this journey with us. Let's grow together.